You guys can open your Bibles to the book of Proverbs. We're going to jump around a little bit tonight in our conversation, so just kind of be prepared to turn pages or type those chapters and numbers very quickly. But let me, by quick way of review, remind you where we've been. So we're talking about the book of Proverbs. We're going through different things about wisdom and discretion, making godly decisions, choosing to honor the Lord and pursue wisdom. And so our first wisdom principle that we talked about 2 weeks ago was that true wisdom, right? It's not just this mind thing, not just this brain thing, but rather true wisdom comes from our fear of the Lord, right? As we worship the Lord and understand more and more of who He is, our beliefs inform our choices, okay? And then last week, our wisdom principle number 2 was that we should obey our parents, all right? Wisdom principle number 2 was obey your parents, because true wisdom comes from sitting under the specially appointed teachers that God has given each one of us. Now, that's something, I don't know if I highlighted this in last week's lesson, that's something that's for a time, right? Obeying your parents is for a time while you're living under their roof, while they are teaching and instructing you and showing you the way that you should go, right? There's going to come a time where you're going to have to step out and live on your own, right? And make decisions on your own. And so the way that you are learning wisdom now is to listen to the voice of your parents and choose to say, you know what, I might not agree with everything my parents say, but I'm gonna submit to it, I'm gonna follow it, I'm gonna learn from it, because there's a lesson here for me that's gonna prepare me for later in life, all right? That brings us to wisdom principle number 3. And I made this kind of general because what I want to do tonight is talk about 3 voices of false wisdom. But our third principle tonight is that we need to beware that there's false wisdom out there. Right? There's false thinking out there, and we need to have a sensitivity to be able to identify what's true and what's false. And by the way, the whole conversation tonight is founded on that sort of preconceived idea, okay, that there is such a thing as true and false. Are you with me in this, right? Our world is very much trying to obliterate the yes and no, the right and wrong, and rather just say what's right for you is right for you, and what's right for me is right for me, okay? Everything we talk about tonight, guys, is founded on the biblical principle, okay, that there is a right and a wrong. There is a true and a false. There is a good and an evil, okay? And so you and I as Christians, we need to train ourselves in this, because our world is going to tell us the total opposite message, okay? We need to train ourselves to care more about what is true, what the truth of God's word actually is, than just caring about how we feel and what other people think, right? And that doesn't mean that what we feel and what other people think don't matter, not in the slightest, right? We need to take those things into consideration, but we need to bring them back to God's word and really evaluate what's true and what's false, and we need to be really attentive to that, okay? Just give me some feedback on this. What are some of the voices that you guys hear? And I don't mean like in your head, like you're crazy and you need to go see a shrink, okay? What are some of the voices that you guys could listen to in the world today that could potentially influence you one way or the other? What are the voices that we might hear? I'm using the word voices intentionally. What are some of the things that we might listen to in the world that could give us direction? Go ahead. Your music, yeah, okay. So the lyrics and the songs that you listen to, the bands, the musicians, the artists that you listen to, right? What are their words saying? How is that impacting your heart and your thinking? How does that make you view yourself, right? That's a huge deal, all right? What we listen to is going to get in there subconsciously or directly, right? Because I really love this song. I love what this is saying. I love this message. I might just love this beat too, right? But there's a message in that song that I need to pay attention to. Go ahead. What we watch, all right? What we watch on Netflix, we watch on Hulu, what we watch on TV. I know none of you actually watch TV anymore, okay? You guys know that NBC has Peacock now, right? That's this new streaming service. It's free. But like, if you want to watch without ads, you have to pay like the premium subscription thing. And I was just thinking, man, how privileged am I right now that when I think about, there's shows on Peacock that I might want to watch, I don't want to pay for it, and I don't want ads either, so I'm not going to bother, right? I'm like so privileged because I have access to Netflix and Hulu. It's like, I don't need that streaming service with ads. I'm not paying for another one. But interestingly enough, we used to have to wait 1 week for the next episode of our TV show, believe it or not. And then after the 20 episodes were done, we had to wait a whole year, okay, until that season came back on. Season 2 came. That's just like crazy, I know. But, media, right, the things that we consume on TV, the things that we watch, there's a voice there, there's a message there. As good as that story is, what is that story trying to tell me, right? What is that message that's there that I need to process and think about and decide, is that a good message or is that a bad message? What else? What are the other voices we might listen to? Somebody else help me out. Go ahead.
Like our parents.
Your parents, all right? So there's a voice there, there's two voices there, right, that are speaking into your life, okay? And you have to take that into consideration. Like we just talked about last week, right? Our parents are there to guide us and direct us, give us wisdom, right? And show us the way that we should go, okay? But our parents aren't perfect, right? So we need to even take their words into consideration and bring them back to God's word and make sure we're doing what's right. Angelina? I'm sorry? Your friends, all right? Your friends, okay? The friends that I have are going to have an enormous shaping influence upon me, okay? And it's not just that what they say is what I'm going to do, but their choices, right? Their lifestyle, what's interesting to them, okay? What they like to eat, what they like to do, okay? How they like to dress. All these things are going to have an impact on me because I live in close connection with them, right? I see what they like, and and we share things, and like we grow together, and so they're going to have a tremendous influence on me. Go ahead, like what you read, okay? Readers in the room? Any readers? Okay. Oh, that's awesome. That's actually more hands than I was expecting, okay? Like what we read, okay, there's a message in there. There's something that is being communicated to me, okay? Guys, all these things, we could add teachers, we could add coaches, all right? We could add, by the way, a distinction, friends and friends on social media, right? We all have those friends too, that are like, I don't really spend a lot of time with them, but I'm connected with them on social media, and they might have a totally different opinion than the friend group that I actually spend time with, right? So there's another influence there, okay? Pastors, right? People that we listen to at church, people like sermons and things that we might listen to on YouTube or a podcast or something, right? All of these voices we are listening to, okay? And so we have to be aware that in all of these things, right, none of them is the ultimate truth, right? All of these are trying to influence us in some way, okay, hopefully for the good, but we have to bring all of those things back to the Word of God and understand that much more clearly. We trust, we respect, and we value the voices of these people, okay? But we need to remember that they aren't the ultimate voices. The voices in our world are going to tell us, things like what it means to be beautiful, like what it means to be masculine, right? What it means to find meaning in life, okay? What is going to truly satisfy us, right? Every one of those voices that we just referenced, TV, right? Your friends, okay? People on social media, your parents, all right? The things you read, the things you listen to, all of those things are trying to tell you something about who you are, right? What's important, what your values should be, all right? And so just a quick thought, and we're going to dive into our conversation here. We all have to some degree tolerate things that we don't agree with, right? Like whether it comes to our friends, our parents, stuff we watch on TV, things we listen to. There's always a degree of like, well, I don't really agree with that. That's not the right message, or my friends have different priorities than I do. And so to some extent, we all tolerate that a little bit. You guys see what I'm saying there? Not saying you necessarily endorse a decision that somebody else might make, but like you have to live alongside of people who sin. Right, and you watch TV and you're like, okay, well those people made sinful choices in that movie, or whatever the case might be. And so there's always a degree of tolerance there, but I think we need to be cautious of how much tolerance we allow. All right, and that's not us like being adamant and rude and mean to people around us, but it's just us being aware that when we put ourselves under the influence of something that is sinful, something that we just disagree with on a moral framework, okay, like that slowly begins to desensitize us to what is actually true. We become much more comfortable being around people who think sinfully about a certain thing, who live in a sinful way, right? And think about this, right? What you choose to tolerate in your life, maybe you don't say the words that those people say, or maybe you don't do the things that those people do, but the more that you tolerate, think about this, the more your sibling who's younger than you is going to think that that's acceptable, right? And then when you, believe it or not, have kids later on in life, the things that you choose to tolerate and think that's okay, your kids are going to be much more open to say, oh yeah, that's normal, that's good, right? So we just need to think about what are the influences that we allow, right? Because the connections that we have to people who look up to us, all right, it's going to be impacting them. See, well, that's okay, they watch that, or they listen to that, or they hang around that person, so that must be okay. And then, maybe you're not trying to say, oh, yes, that is okay, but they're going to have their own opinions about that. So we just need to be aware that the voices that we celebrate, the things we listen to, the things we are engaging with, they're going to have an impact on not just us, the way we think about the world, but also in the people that we're connected to, okay? So again, we need to filter all these voices, everything we hear through the Word of God. That includes our own feelings and our own ideas. Let's look at 3 voices that the book of Proverbs is going to use to describe false wisdom, okay? And I'm going to give you them up front, and then we'll talk about them. We've got 3 basically caricatures, right, or sort of like cartoon, exaggerated kind of people here in the scriptures, okay? We have the fool, okay? We'll look at the fool. We're going to look at the sluggard, okay? And we're going to look at someone called the mocker or the scoffer, depending on what your translation says, okay? And each one of these represents a false voice of wisdom, okay? So turn to Proverbs 9 with me. We're going to look at Proverbs 9 at the end here, and we'll start talking about the fool. Now, I think the fool's wisdom is just do it, okay? The wisdom that the fool tries to sell is just do it. What could go wrong, right? And listen to the way this is described, okay? This is Proverbs chapter 9. Starting at the end in verse 13, okay? Proverbs 9, verse 13. We actually have the woman folly is loud. So she's being characterized as a silly, loud, adulterous kind of woman, okay? The woman folly is loud. She is seductive and knows nothing. She sits at the door of her house. She takes a seat on the highest places of the town, calling to those who pass by, who are going straight on their way. Whoever is simple, let him turn in here. And to him who lacks sense, she says, stolen water is sweet, and bread eaten in secret is pleasant. But he does not know that the dead are there, and that her guests are in the depths of Sheol, or the pit, or like the afterlife, okay? Here's what's being said here, okay? Solomon is creating a picture that he's going to come back to a couple of times. We have this picture of a woman who is loud, who is a voice that's literally calling here, right? And she's trying to seduce a young man that might be walking by and say, hey, you know, come on over here, right? And that's the character of the fool. We see that repeated a couple of times here. And the wisdom that's being here is just do it, right? Just go ahead and do it. You don't have to think about it, right? The moment is an exciting thing, okay? Now, that's sort of, you know, one way to capture this. Let me ask the group this, okay? Someone willing to share something really dumb that they've done. Something really dumb that they did. Okay, Angelina's hand went. You already had something in mind. Give me something really dumb that you did.
Pierced my ear 3 times.
Pierce your ear 3 times.
With the safety pin.
With a safety pin. The same safety pin? Yeah, okay. What happened?
Put jewelry in my ear.
You put jewelry in your ear. Okay, I thought there was maybe more to the story. Like it got infected and it swelled up 6 times its size. It was, you were sanitary, okay. But I guess it was dumb to like do that at home with a safety pin, you know. Any other girls willing to say they've done that? Okay, man in the back, that's great. Great. Oh, Mason's done that too, fantastic.
Oh, no.
Do you have something dumb you did?
Yeah, so, well, yeah, I have a whole book.
Oh, okay. Where do we start?
No, but I remember I was hiking once, and well, this could be one or 2 stories. I'll get the better one.
Okay.
I was hiking once, I don't know, I was probably 9 or 10, and I saw a dead tree. It was, I don't know, probably 14 feet tall. And I was doing karate at the time. I was like, man, I wonder if I could sidekick this tree.
I like where this is going.
So I kicked the tree and the top broke off and hit me on the head and hit my head.
Nice. So was it a flying sidekick kind of thing?
Yeah, it was just like a...
You just laid out for it, and then the tree came down and...
The tree went like this, the top stayed there, and then it fell on my head.
That's a very cartoonish kind of moment, right? Like, I can picture it like your eyes getting big as it's falling towards you. Kind of deal.
I think I lost a couple inches of height back then.
Yeah, you would be much taller. All right, Asa?
I stapled a piece of paper to my hand.
You stapled a piece of paper to your hand.
Yeah. So I was in school and I was trying to staple the paper normally and it wasn't working. For some reason, I thought that if I opened it up and just slammed it while holding the paper in my hand, that would staple it. And it went through the 2 sheets of paper and stapled to my finger.
Okay. Well, you probably didn't lose that piece of paper for a while. Go ahead, Noah.
That's a little funny. I tried to show my dad something while we were riding bikes, and I wanted to show him that I could skid, and I forgot how to for like a split second, and I ended up hitting both brakes instead of just the back brake, and the bike ended up tipping over on the front, and the seat landed on my back.
Nice. So you kind of almost went over the handlebars there?
Yeah, almost.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a moment like that. I was biking with some friends in New York, and I thought I was making a turn better than I was, and it didn't happen, and I went over the handlebars. It was almost really ugly. Go ahead. dancing on the countertop and you fell off. And is there any more to that story? Okay, well that was probably not the smartest thing to do, right? It's dancing on the countertop. I've never danced on the countertop. I have stood on the countertop before, but go ahead, Ariel.
One time I was at the Stones Connection group, and I was probably like 12, and their neighbors like throw beer cans in the ground, like glass ones, so I decided to pick it up and like throw it at a log, and it came back and hit me in the forehead. And I ended up using my spurs in my forehead, so I was expecting it to like crack.
Okay, right. You wanted it to shatter. It came straight back. Anybody who didn't quite hear that story, Ariel was throwing beer cans. No context, just that's what she was doing. Okay. Anyway, one more, go ahead.
So when I was young, we were jumping downstairs.
Okay, of course.
And so I told my younger brother, hey, you shouldn't jump down these stairs, you're going to hurt myself. And then I did it myself and almost bit through my tongue.
Oh no. That's awful. Yeah. Isn't it always the worst when like you tell somebody you shouldn't do that and then you do it and then something really bad happens, you know? So here's the thing, all right, we all have these stories, okay, of these moments where we did something that was not the most intelligent thing we could do, okay? So what is the difference then, okay, between doing something foolish and being a fool, okay? Because that's the distinction we need to be able to make tonight. Because again, we all have those stories, we all have those moments of things that in hindsight, that wasn't the smartest thing I've ever did, right? And I probably wouldn't do that again. So what distinguishes someone who is a fool from just a foolish decision or a foolish action that you or I might commit? What do you guys think? Go ahead, Ann. If you're a fool, you don't learn from your mistakes. Great. Okay, go ahead. Basically the same thing? Okay, if you're a fool, you don't learn from your mistakes. What else?
If you're a fool, you go into something full well knowing like how it could end.
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
If you're a fool, you go into something full well knowing that it could end, like how it would end.
Oh, so even though you could kind of foresee what could happen, you still go, on and into the danger. Chris in the back there, what do you got, man?
Being foolish is a lifestyle.
Being foolish is a lifestyle. Okay. Anyone else want to add to that? Okay, Kim.
If you're a fool, you think it's okay to make these mistakes.
If you're a fool, you think it's okay to make mistakes. Oh yeah, no big deal. It's just, it's just who I am. It's what I do. Okay. Yeah, I want to give you guys a quick equation here. Okay. I've given this to you guys before, but this is something I think is very helpful for us to think about. So, my cheap old whiteboard here. All right. Let me start over. C equals A over T. Okay? Cat. Cats are foolish. No. C equals A over T. Character equals actions over time. Okay? Character equals actions over time. What do I mean by that? All right? Character is who you are. All right? It's your identity. It's your reputation. Okay? You get to a character by committing certain actions over a period of time. Now, all of us know that sometimes your first impression with someone doesn't go very well, right? Like you meet someone and you had like egg on your face or something, and then it was ugly, and then you regret it forever after that, right? So like, and then that person walks away just thinking that like they never look in the mirror ever in their life, okay? So what happens is our character is formulated by what people see in us, okay? Now, God sees our hearts, okay? People only see the outside, God sees our hearts. And so as we grow as a person, the things that we do over time, that comes out of our hearts, all right? And we determine as we begin to engage in decision making, if I continue to make foolish decisions, well, I'm not really growing and learning from that. I'm becoming a fool, right? I'm doing stupid things and not learning from them, okay? Versus, someone who makes a foolish mistake and says, that was dumb. I learned from that. Here's what I'm going to do next time, okay? That changes. And so the more I repeat a certain action over time, right, the more that forms my character. And guys, that's why when you get set in a way, when you get set in your thinking, like it's so hard to change. Because over time you begin to develop those habits and those patterns and you become comfortable with a certain way of living. It becomes harder and harder to look at yourself and make some changes, okay? So we need to remember that character equals action over time. Foolishness can be silliness, lack of wisdom, right? Mistakes, okay? Proverbs 22:15 says that folly is bound up in the heart of a child, okay? But the rod of discipline will drive it far from him, all right? And so we recognize that in youth, right, learning and growing, there's foolishness, there's mistakes, okay? And actually Psalm 69:5 says something to the effect of, the Lord knows the folly of my heart, Right? The Lord knows that I have foolish things, okay? But that doesn't mean I'm a fool because I repent of those things. I change, I grow. A fool is someone who repeats folly because he doesn't think critically, he doesn't plan ahead, and he doesn't learn from his mistakes, okay? A fool is someone also who's spiritually blinded by arrogance and self-centeredness. Psalm 53:1 says, the fool has said in his heart, there is no God, okay? So here's the thing. Someone who's foolish, foolhardy, like that type of behavior pattern, that's something that is worthy of let's consider how we can grow and change in that kind of dynamic. Someone who lives that way though is also coming to the point of arrogance. Their heart is hardening to wisdom and to truth, okay? Even to the point where they're going to say, you know what? I don't believe any of this spiritual stuff, right? I don't believe there is such a thing as a God, and if there is one, I'm not accountable to him. Okay? Like there's such a thin line between those two things of living a life that's totally impulsive, totally doing everything for me in the moment, okay, and a life that denies that there even is a God, okay? So someone who's foolhardy is in a dangerous place, but there is hope for that person, right? There is hope for that person. As a matter of fact, if you let your eye wander back from chapter 9 over to chapter 8, Proverbs 8, verse 5, listen to who the voice of wisdom calls to. She says, O simple ones, learn prudence. O fools, learn sense, right? So, someone who is a foolish person is not beyond hope, right? There is possibility for growth. There is every potential to change it. So just consider this, and then we'll talk about the sluggard. Are you the type of person who is impulsive, right? Are you the type of person who makes choices, and not just like once in a while, but like all the time? Every choice you make is something that doesn't consider consequences. And do you tend to repeat the same mistakes over and over and over and over and over and over again? Not just like twice, but like over and over again. Guys, that might be time for us to consider. If that's you, am I trending down the path of foolishness? Am I listening to the voice of foolishness that says, just do it, okay? Do I need to change the voice of wisdom that I'm listening to? Let's talk about the sluggard, okay? The sluggard is the lazy person, okay? That's kind of an old-fashioned word, but it's here in our Bibles, okay? And the sluggard's wisdom is this. We'll take that just do it idea and twist it a little bit. The sluggard's wisdom is wait and see if you actually need to do it later. Okay, that's the sluggard's wisdom. Wait and see if you actually need to do it later. Turn over to Proverbs 24 with me. I told you we were going to move around a little bit. Proverbs chapter 24, and let's look at an example of the lazy person or the sluggard. Okay, Proverbs 24 verse 30. Proverbs 24 verse 30. All right. We'll get a couple of verses here for verses 30 to 34. It says, I passed by the field of a sluggard, by the vineyard of a man lacking sense. And behold, it was all overgrown with thorns. The ground was covered with nettles, and its stone wall was broken down. Then I saw and considered it. I looked and received instruction. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest. And poverty will come upon you like a robber, and want like an armed man. Some of you are like, what the heck is that saying? Okay, here's the picture. The writer of this proverb says, I was walking and I came across a garden, okay, or what used to be a garden, right, because it's not been tended to, okay. The vines are growing out of control, the weeds are everywhere, the thorns are choking anything good that could be growing there, the wall that was there to protect it is like dilapidated and falling down, right, and the lesson here is that there is someone who owns this land, right? And they have not tended to it, right? They've been lazy, they've put it off, okay? They've allowed nature to kind of take its course there, all right? And that's the product, and then the lesson that he's taking away is, just a little bit of sleep, right? Just a little bit of being lazy, a little bit of saying, I'll get to it later, right? And what happens is poverty comes upon you, like suddenly. Like no one expects a robber to break into their house, right? But sometimes it happens, okay? It's sudden and unexpected. And because I let my guard down and because I waited and I procrastinated and I didn't do what I knew I needed to do, all of a sudden I'm in this fix, right? All of a sudden I'm in trouble, all right? And that's what laziness does. So let me give you a couple of thoughts about the lazy person here, okay, that Proverbs is describing. The sluggard is someone who doesn't start and who doesn't finish things. Okay, so again, we're not talking about just like, I want the afternoon to just be lazy for the day, okay, and then I'll get back to work tomorrow. We're talking about someone who is unable to start projects and someone who's unable to finish projects, okay. These are both definitions of a lazy person, right? This is a person who's distracted by pleasure and entertainment and unwilling to work hard, right? Because every time I think about the work that I could do, it's like, I'll do it later. It's too hard, right? I'll do something easy now, or I'm just not willing to commit myself long term. And then when I actually get started, I realize, it doesn't harder than I thought. Forget it, I'm gonna do something else, all right? Any kind of difficulty, resistance, right, kills that sense of motivation, all right? And so this person will start to make excuses, and then ironically, they're gonna become really, really good at working hard at not working. You guys see what I'm saying there, right? I'm gonna come up with all kinds of ways that I can avoid doing the things that I know I need to do, okay? And there's actually, in that regard, there are a lot of lazy people who are incredibly busy, okay? That might seem like that's not possible. How can you be lazy and busy? But here's the thing, someone who's lazy and a procrastinator when it comes to the hard stuff is gonna fill their life with meaningless things, right? To keep them from the things that are really important, all right? All the stuff I gotta do, they become a slave to the tyranny of the urgent. They do the things that are immediately important and they leave off the things that are like really important, right? I'm gonna focus only on the here and now and what's the easy stuff. And so I'm actually gonna become good at working hard to avoid the things that I really know I need to do, okay? There are a lot of people who are lazy in that and really, really skilled at avoiding the work that they know needs to be done. What do you guys think are some of the troubles that a lazy person might bring on themselves? What are some of the consequences that being lazy could go? Miss Jen, did you have one? Missed opportunity. Yeah, that's such a huge one, right? Because I'm unwilling to try hard things, I'm unwilling to engage, I'm unwilling to put myself out there, man, I miss out on stuff, right? I miss out on relationships, I miss out on important life events, okay? What else? What are some other consequences of laziness? Go ahead.
You just never get anything done.
Never get anything done, right? And what happens? Your task list piles up, and piles up, and piles up. And then at the end of the school year, okay, you have all 6 books to read that you were supposed to read at the beginning, right? I'm sorry, Mason, is that too close to home? Right? Like, you get to the point where it's like all of a sudden that work is just, it's all there, and now I gotta do it all at once, okay? Disorganized, yeah, absolutely, right? I lose track of things, I have no plan, my stuff is scattered everywhere. Messiness, okay, can we just go to that one, right? How many of you have a messy room, okay? This doesn't mean that you're all lazy, all right? But, all right, organization, right? Being on top of the little things, okay, is a huge way to combat a lazy tendency, right? It's a way that I say, I'm in control of the small stuff so that I can be in control of the big stuff, okay? What else? What are some other consequences of laziness? Go ahead.
Probably not like as happy as you would be.
Not as happy as you would be. Yeah, like I'm anxious. I become a worrier, and maybe I have really good desires. Like I would really like to be organized. I would really like to get on top of this stuff, but because I'm not willing to push myself and actually do the work, I just get stuck, and then I become more anxious, right? And it just kind of cycles that way. Michael? Bad reputation, yeah. Like you're gonna become a nuisance to other people because they're gonna want you to do things and you're not gonna be willing to do them, right? Okay, you can become a nuisance to other people. What else? Other consequences of laziness? Anything else come to mind? Right, you're not gonna be able to keep any promises, okay? If you're lazy, you won't be able to keep promises. You're gonna be annoyed at other people for taking up more of your time than you want to give them, all right? You're gonna be irritable. You're just gonna make life hard for yourself, right? You're gonna neglect the simple responsibilities that are gonna accumulate and accumulate and accumulate, right? And so a sluggard, someone who lives this way, a lazy person who lives this way, is like the foolish person, becomes very self-deceived, right? Because they're gonna have to come up with some really ironclad reasons why they're not doing the things that other people are telling them to do, okay? As a matter of fact, Proverbs 16:25 says, there is a way that seems right to a man, but in its end it leads to death, okay? And that's not just applied to the lazy person, that's applied to any person who says, what I want to do, the thing that I think is the most important thing to do is the only thing that's right. Man, if I just pursue that and don't listen to the voice of wisdom, the end is gonna be ugly. It's not gonna be good, all right? And so a lazy person is going to oppose anything that's going to attempt to push him or her out of bed, away from his phone, all right? Because he's gonna be convinced that he's smarter than other people and that he's gonna have really good reasons, really spiritual sounding reasons for why he does the things that he does, right? Like, I need rest, right? Everybody needs rest. Or, salvation isn't by works, so why should I, okay? I need a balanced life, there's danger in acquiring lots of wealth, so I won't even try, okay? okay? All kinds of spiritual sounding reasons, all right, that could be internal or vocalized, right? But a lazy person is going to have to do a lot of work to not work, okay? Which is one of the greatest ironies of being lazy, right? Does any of that describe you, all right? Are you the type of person who puts off hard decisions and just hopes the right answer is going to materialize on its own, all right? Are you the type of person who is frustrated over relationships that are broken in your life, but are you unwilling to self-examine or go to those people and have hard conversations? Okay, that's a sign of laziness, okay? Are you desiring to grow spiritually, but are you unable to bring yourself to engage in regular spiritual disciplines like quiet time, like prayer, right? Like fellowship, like Bible memory, okay? Or are you the type of person who ignores sound advice because it's hard, okay? Guys, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're a sluggard, okay? Just like doing foolish things doesn't necessarily make you a fool, but it's not a good tendency if those things describe you, right? We want to listen to the voice of wisdom, not the voice of laziness, not the voice of foolishness. Let me give you one more, all right? This is the mocker's wisdom or the scoffer's wisdom. And this one is, so the fool said, just do it, all right? The sluggard said, wait and see if you need to do it later, okay? Procrastinate. The mocker says, don't do it, it's stupid anyway. That's what the mocker says. Don't do it, it's stupid anyway. Let's explain this one a little bit. So I asked a couple of people to read. Raise your hand if I gave you a Bible verse to read for me. So I know I've got people. Okay, great. I'm going to go to, who has Proverbs 13:1? Proverbs 13:1. Who's got, Michael, can you stand up, face the group, and read that really loud?
A wise son hears his father's instruction, but a scoffer does not listen to rebuke.
Okay, a wise son listens to his father, but a scoffer does not listen to rebuke. This is the mocker or the scoffer we're talking about. He says, don't do it, it's stupid anyway. Who's got Proverbs 15:12? 15:12, who's got that one?
Justin? I don't know, I kind of ripped my paper.
You can't remember your paper? You want to get that one from me? Proverbs 15:12?
Proverbs 15, but I don't know which verse.
Can you get verse 12?
Yeah, I'll do that.
That's the only one in 15, so that's you. Real loud.
A scoffer does not like to be reproved. He will not go to the wise.
A scoffer does not like to be reproved. He will not go to the wise because he doesn't want the advice that's going to be given to him, okay? Proverbs 22:10, who's got that one? Go ahead, say that real loud.
Drive out a scoffer and strife will go out. Quarreling and abuse will cease.
Okay, that one is, there's a lot of, there's a couple of verses in Proverbs that are like that where it says, basically, kick the scoffer out, okay? Because that's the only way you're going to find peace in the relationship, okay? Can you read the second part of that one more time for me?
Quarreling and abuse will cease.
Quarreling and abuse will cease. What a scoffer does, again, he says, don't do it, it's stupid. He abuses everyone, right? Verbally abuses everyone. He is like mocking, tearing down, ridiculing everything, right? And so removing him from your presence is a way to get peace, okay? Who's got 26 verses 18 and 19? Go ahead, stand up real loud and read that first line.
Like a maniac shooting flaming arrows of death is one who deceives their neighbor and says, I was only joking.
I love your translation, okay? Like a maniac shooting arrows of fire, is that what that said? That's awesome. That's a great translation, okay? Is the person who says, who deceives his neighbor and said, I was only joking, right? We all know people like that, right? I didn't mean it. I was just joking, right? Dangerous, 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 okay? Chapter 24, verse 9. Who's got that one? Go ahead, Jonathan.
The schemes of folly are sin, and men detest a mocker.
Men detest a mocker. Okay, here's the thing, all right? This guy is a guy, he cannot help but poke fun at everything, all right? He cannot help but make jokes about everything, okay? And here's the reality, you guys. Now, I want to let you in on a secret here, okay? Someone who lives this way thinks they're being funny, they're just being funny, but they're actually sitting in judgment of everything, okay? Are you with me in this? Someone who's poking fun, making jokes all the time, like just pointing out how everything else is silly and stupid and ugly, okay? They're sitting in judgment of everything. They're passing judgment on everything, okay? Nothing and no one will ever live up to that person's standard, okay? Because everything is worthy of ridicule. Everything's worthy of being mocked, okay? Which means that he sees himself far more highly than anybody else, right? No one is going to live up to them. That's why I think that some of the best comedians that are out there are the angriest people, right? Like, I don't know if you guys have thought about this, but the angriest people in the world are the best comedians because they're pointing out the things that are wrong, right? And that's why they're so good at what they do. That's why when they stand up there, they're so funny, because they're able to highlight the things that are broken, the things that are wrong, right? But that's the quality of a mocker. Also, you might say, you know what, I make a lot of jokes, I'm just being sarcastic, right? There's nothing wrong with a little sarcasm, all right? And I've had this conversation with you guys before, so I apologize if I'm a broken record here, but, I think sarcasm is often the time that we're being truly honest, all right? I think sarcasm is not like just, oh, I didn't really mean it, I was just joking, I was just shooting like a maniac, shooting firebrands or whatever it said, okay? That's a dangerous thing to always be sarcastic, because I'm really being honest and hiding it in the guise of humor, okay? So I have to be aware of that, okay? So I need to be aware that, I'm sitting in judgment of people, and I need to be cautious of the way that my tongue can tear other people down, okay? Someone who's a scoffer also thinks he knows it all, so he becomes ultimately unteachable, okay? If everything is worthy of being mocked, if everything is stupid, okay, then I'm not going to be teachable, and that's why that verse that I think Asa read that verse. He's not going to go to the wise. He's not going to go seek anybody's advice, okay? He's not going to listen to advice, because he's just going to tear it down anyway, all right? And then the only way to have peace with him is to avoid him, like we read, kick him out, and then the quarreling will cease, okay? Now here's one other thought, and then we're going to wrap up here, okay? A lot of people find mockers funny, right? People who make jokes all the time, who tease other people, who point out what's wrong with the world, right? We find them funny, and so a scoffer or a mocker, he finds strength in the numbers that are there, right? You guys remember Psalm 1, Psalm 1:1 says, blessed is the man who walks not in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat with sinners, nor stands in the way of scoffers, right? And so there's a plurality to the group there, the group dynamic of, if I can find somebody else that can heckle with me, right? I feel strength in that, okay? And so here's the way this might work, right? Popular people, okay, and that's not necessarily popular people in this group, but in general, popular people often flock together because together they can tear the rest of the commoners down, right? Together we can make fun of everybody else, all right? We feel good about ourselves because people look up to us, and it doesn't matter who we step on in the process, okay? And so someone who's in this type of thinking, who's listening to this type of wisdom, right, is going to delight to be the center of attention and to have an audience, right? Boys, this is often we like to be the class clown, right? We like to sit in the back of the group on youth group nights, right, and make comments. That's what we like to do, okay? It doesn't matter. Just targeting Mason tonight. Or at school, I guess at school right now you have to sit every other row, and you're not close enough to talk to anybody anymore, okay? But it's a fun place to be, in the back of the room, making comments that the teacher can't hear, right, and making everybody around you laugh, okay? That's how this can manifest, right, where everything becomes a joke, and I'm not taking anything seriously, okay? We need to be cautious of that. For girls, I think girls are often the ones who just say, I say it like it is, right? I'm just saying what I'm thinking, right? That's a dangerous thing too, right? Because I'm not actually partnering anything gracious with the truth that I might be trying to say, And I might say, oh, I'm just joking, I'm just messing around, but I'm saying it like it is, right? That's problematic, ladies, if that's the way you address other people or talk about other people with your friends, okay? Right? And so here's the thing though, okay? Someone who is constantly tearing other people down, okay, like this person does, is ultimately alone. All right? They might be surrounded by other popular people, okay, or other people who think they're funny, all right? But because they're constantly tearing other people down, right, they don't really have the connection with other people that they wish they did, all right? It's a very lonely place to be, right? So I would say if you are the type of person, who speaks that way, okay, don't be surprised if you feel like everyone around you is inauthentic and not a good friend, okay? Because you're creating a shallow series of relationships around yourself that's only based on putting people in their place, right? Tearing people up and making them feel bad about themselves, okay? Again, I know that some of us, we love humor. I love humor. I like to joke around. We like to tease each other, okay? The point of this conversation tonight is just to help us think about, how do I use my language, and am I just buying into the wisdom that says, know what, everything is dumb, right? And we should make fun of it all and tear it all apart. We don't have to be serious about anything, right? Because that's a way of living in our world, right? Where we just make fun of things and we can't take things seriously, okay? So here's what I want you guys to think about as we close out tonight, all right? And we're going to go to our recap time in just a second here. Which of these are you the most in danger of becoming? Okay? Which of these are you the most in danger of becoming? Which description best fits you? Is it the lazy person? Right? Is it the person who is always mocking others? Or is it the person who's foolish, right? Who just does foolish things all the time, all right? Again, we would do better, okay, to be like the person who is listening to the voice of wisdom, all right, so that we can become wise. We don't want to listen to the voice of foolishness, the voice of laziness, or the voice of mocking. We want to listen to the voice of wisdom. Before we close, let's look back at Proverbs 8 one more time. Proverbs chapter 8. And listen to the other voice that is calling here. Okay, so Proverbs 9 gave us the voice of folly, right? The foolish voice, okay? And there's the other things scattered around in the book of Proverbs. Look how verse 1 of Proverbs 8 begins. All right? Solomon says, "Does not wisdom call? Does not understanding raise her voice? On the heights beside the way, at the crossroads she takes her stand. Beside the gates in front of the town, at the entrance of the portals, she cries aloud, 'To you, O men, I call, and my cry is to the children of man. O simple ones, learn prudence. O fools, learn sense. Hear, for I will speak noble things, and from my lips will come what is right. From my mouth will utter truth. Wickedness is an abomination to my lips. All the words of my mouth are righteous, and there is nothing twisted or crooked in them. They are all straight to him who understands, and right to those who find knowledge. Take my instruction instead of silver, and knowledge rather than choice gold. For wisdom is better than jewels, and all that you desire cannot compare with her." All right? Guys, that's the voice we need to listen to, right? And that voice is originating. I know it's a metaphor, it's poetic, like the voice of a woman, but what's being said here is that the wisdom that God provides is the thing that's going to give us truth and understanding, okay? That wisdom is found in God's word, and it's calling to us to listen to this voice, not the voices that are in the world.